I want to preface this by saying this is my opinion. Normally I don't do this before book reviews, but always they're my opinion only. Everyone has different opinions. Some books hit people differently, but yeah, this one hit me differently. I just want to say it's my opinion because this is going to be not a nice review. So if you're the author for some reason watching this, don't. You don't need to see this. A lot of people love your books. I loved your last one. Don't watch this review. But anyway, let's get to the main attraction, and that is the book Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. So I picked this up from Book of the Month because I absolutely loved her last book. I think it was like, what, Rock, Paper, Scissors? And this one says like, hey, it's gonna be, what is it, Agatha Christie? With a wicked wink to Agatha Christie's and then there were none, Daisy Darker's unforgettable twists will leave readers reeling. So because it says it's Agatha Christie, I'm so excited for this. So Daisy Darker follows our main character, Daisy Darker, and she is going to a family reunion at her grandmother's house on this, it's like a secluded little, not really beach location, but it's out basically on a rock. Think of Harry Potter, like the shack that's in the middle of the ocean. When the tide comes in, you can't get to it. You have to use a boat, or oftentimes the storms are too bad, so you can't get across the boat even. But the whole family is coming, like the immediate family. So it's gonna be grandma, her two sisters, one of the sisters' daughters, her mom and dad, and like a family friend is gonna be there. And Nana decides to read her will off, and she's this very wealthy like children's writer, and the book is called Daisy Darker. So she named the book after the youngest daughter of her son. At midnight, somebody dies, and basically every hour from that point, people are dying off. And the family who's alive is trying to figure out who's doing it, what's going on, if it's one of them, or if someone, I was gonna say mischievous, but if someone's on the island that shouldn't be on the island, killing them off. So it does have and then there were none vibes, but if you read and then there were none, it 100% ruins one of the surprises. So let's, before I get into that, we'll get into my rating, which is a 1 out of 5. I really hated this book. Really hated it. Like, whew, and I can't talk about why I hated it until I get to spoilers. So let's talk about general things that I liked. I did like the atmosphere. Thought the atmosphere was fun. Had a good time with that. I enjoyed the fact that the characters were unlikable for the most part. The issue with that comes at the end. Because for me, if I'm not gonna like any characters, I kind of have to be rooting for somebody, or hate everyone and it's kind of part of the plot. It's kind of difficult to explain. I feel like a lot of people have difficulty explaining why they like a book that has unlikable characters. For example, when we were Bright and Beautiful, every single person is unlikable, but they're supposed to be unlikable. You are not supposed to like a single person in that book, but the point is that you're supposed to not like them and feel bad that you don't feel bad for one of them. So it's kind of like messing with you. This one just wanted to not feel guilty about people dying, pretty much, is what it felt like. Like, it's basically wanting you to be like, oh, that person's dead, okay, who cares? And I don't necessarily love that. I'll explain again when I get to spoilers. I'll explain again later. So, things that I like I said, atmosphere is pretty good. I liked that we had a mix of likable and unlikable characters. She didn't just try and make you like everybody, make it one-dimensional, which again I'll get to. Honestly, that's all I can think about that I liked about it. That's all I can think about. Okay, things that I didn't like about it. The twist. Number one, I don't think they should have marketed it as and then there were none. I get it, they wanted to like drum up excitement for the book, because it definitely worked. However, it ruined one of the twists. And then the other twist was just, I hated it. I hated it so much. And I guess there's technically a third twist that I also hated. So one was obvious. The other two, absolutely disliked, thought it ruined the book. And I'll explain when we get into spoilers. Ugh, this book upsets me. So other things that I didn't like, again, it comes down to the unlikable characters thing. I'll explain in spoilers. But I felt like the characters were almost caricatures of people. Like, it's like she read a book about what the worst mother would be like, what the worst father would be like, what the worst siblings. I felt like I was reading a book about Cinderella's family. That's what it felt like. The dad was absent most of the life. So like in Cinderella, her dad dies. But in this, her dad's just absent. Her parents divorce. Her mom is trash. So just think of the stepmom. Her mom is trash, doesn't treat her well, doesn't pay attention to any kids. She basically regrets having children. That's pretty much who she is. She has moments of caring, but in general, she's awful. And then you have the two sisters, who one is literally the worst human alive, and she has a daughter. She does not care about anyone but herself. She feels like a caricature. Like she is just actually a bad person. There's no like redeeming quality about her at all. So it's not, I want to feel conflicted. I don't want to read about just like awful characters. I want to feel conflicted and understand why they're like this. And then you have the other sister who, she was a good character. She was probably the most dynamic character of the family, to be honest. She's a vet, but she's very cold-hearted. She's very detached from people, but she loves animals, and she's always conflicted about why she's doing things, and you can't really tell if she likes people because she likes people, or she likes broken people because they remind her of animals, and it just seems like she likes broken people. She's a complicated character. I actually really liked her character. Very morally gray kind of character there, like her. And then you have Grandma, who's literally just Grandma. And then you have the daughter, who is really annoying throughout the book. And then, am I missing anybody? No. So it was very, again, it felt like she just picked out the most generic characters in Cinderella and other books and slapped them in here. I feel like there was no dynamic exchange with the characters. So I really did not enjoy that. Everything felt very one-dimensional with those characters. Oh, the thing that I really liked about this book were the poems. I thought the poems were really, really cool. I forgot about that part. There's poems in this book that basically told you the order, or like how people were gonna die and why they were gonna die. And then there's like longer poems at the end of each chapter of someone dying, explaining their life. I did love that. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, that's pretty much, God, I'm trying to think of who would like this. I don't know because I didn't like it that much. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but I know there are people out here that enjoyed it. Like, I know people enjoyed it. I did not, to the point that I cannot say anybody who I think this is good for. I can't even say it's good for people who liked And Then There Were None, because I love And Then There Were None, and it ruined it. It ruined it reading the original book, whatever, the source material. So, because normally this is the part where I'm like, oh, you might like it, but I can't do it. Can't do it. So we're gonna skip over that part and go right to the spoilers, which is, I'm gonna try and not go too long. I'm gonna try. I also didn't write anything down. Normally when I do spoilers, I'll write down an order of events, but I was like, we're just not doing that. We're gonna go full throttle into this baby, okay? So if you have not read this book and you want to read it, don't watch this part. This is spoilers. Okay, we're gonna get right into it. Obviously, Nana dies first. It's not really a spoiler. I think it might even say it like in the synopsis, but it's pretty obvious. Matriarch of the family, she's gonna die first. She was reading her will out. She said she like went and got a premonition that she was gonna die on her 80th birthday, something like that, and she's very into that kind of thing. So she dies, looks like blunt force trauma, and I think her son dies next, and then the mom disappears, and then it's a whirlwind after that. It's not really important who dies first, whatever. Basically, there's nothing worth talking about that much until the very end. Like, there really isn't. It's not a super long book, but it definitely felt like it dragged at some points because you're going through all this history. It takes place in two, like, storylines, and it's happening in the past where you're following Daisy Darker when she's a kid and going through her childhood, and then, see, the Nat is back. I swear I only see it, so it must just like stay in the library, but the house is open. I don't understand. You go through her childhood with her sisters and the neighborhood friends. So Connor lives like in a house down the street or something like that, and he grew up with the daughters. And you find out he had like a relationship with Rose, the older sister. And anyways, I don't know. I get it's important later, but I just didn't care that much, because the sisters are so unlikable that I just didn't care. So it's going through her childhood, and it's basically just showing examples of why her sisters are assholes. It's just constant reasons why they're assholes, and why the neighborhood kid is hanging out with them all the time. I felt like they wasted a lot of time on the neighborhood boy and giving him this sad backstory of abuse. So yeah, if you don't like abuse, some of this might be difficult or not like, but if your trigger warning is abuse, you might not like some parts of this. It's not ever explicitly on the page, but they talk about it. They go a lot into Connor's background of him constantly being abused by his dad, and I feel like they didn't need to go into as in depth as they did. Like, I get it. I got it after like the third or fourth time you talked about it. I get that he's always around the kids because his dad is an asshole. I get it. I also get that him and Rose started a relationship. I get that. I get that the little sister is a jerk, like is actually legitimately kind of evil. I get that Lily is a bad person. I get it. She went into so much detail about the childhood. It was just almost overwhelming to the main storyline where everyone's dying, which was much more interesting. So basically you get to the point where you find out that they're all dying for a reason, and you don't find that out. You find out all the twists like at the same time, which was very confusing. And there was a moment in the book where it was, I know what you did last summer kind of thing going on, but it was also like Scary Movie, the comedy, and it was, yeah. So you find out all these twists at the same time. You find out that Daisy Darker is actually dead. She's a ghost. Did not like that twist. I thought it was silly. I started laughing when I read that, but it was also horribly depressing. Like, do you know when you laugh in awkward situations? That's how I felt reading this. I was so horribly depressed at the idea of her character being dead, because you're following her the whole book, and she just is basically tortured the whole book. Her mom doesn't let her go to school. She doesn't go out. She doesn't do anything. The neighborhood boy is nice to her, but not really. He just hangs out with the two older sisters. The two older sisters torture her. Like, they are horrible. They don't let her do anything, and it goes past that. Like, she almost drowned because her sisters were being jerks. And then she has a heart condition that she's gonna die young, but then you find out she actually wasn't going to. Her life was gonna extend to like her mid-20s when she thought she was only gonna live till she was like 15, something like that. But her mom never gave her the surgery before she died. She is just absolutely treated like trash in her childhood, and you're telling me that she died as a kid not because of her heart condition, and she hasn't lived a life. That's what you're telling me? There was no justice in this book. There just wasn't. And if I'm reading like a thriller or horror, it's why I have some issues with horrors. I want there to be justice at the end of a book, at least somewhat. Like, I don't like it when I feel like the bad guys get away with something, or even if they get away with something, I don't like it when the good guys are the ones who suffer. And that's what happened in this book. She lived a miserable life, and half the time she can't even remember that she's dead. She just thinks people are ignoring her. That is so sad. This book is so sad to the point where I thought this was going to be a fun thriller, because that's what I read a lot of thrillers for, is fun, quick, beach read kind of thing. And I read this at the beach. And I just get to the end and I'm like, this is so depressing. And it's even worse because the way that she died is she snuck into her sister's car when they were going out to a party. And it was the two sisters and the older sister's boyfriend, Connor, who's the neighborhood boy. And Lily and Connor sleep together, the younger sister, because Lily convinces Connor that her older sister's gonna leave him because she's so smart and she's going to a big fancy school the next year, and Connor's just kind of like this neighborhood boy who's not going anywhere. So Lily convinces Connor that Rose is gonna leave him, so Lily and Connor sleep together. And then you're like, oh, ding ding ding, Trixie is Lily and Connor's daughter. That was obvious. They said it like later and you're like, it's not really a surprise. This was pretty obvious when you said you slept together. So then the what's her face sees them. Daisy Darker knew the whole time. She saw them, runs off, and you find out that they just leave her at the party. Are you kidding me? Like, you forget your sister at the party and start driving home drunk, and you hit her in the road. They hit her. She dies, kind of. So she dies, but she thinks, this was like a little bit of wonky science, but they think her heart stopped, but because of the adrenaline kick or something, her heart restarted. So when they decide to throw her over the side of the cliff so they don't get in trouble. Like, I get Connor doing it. Connor's just a neighborhood kid. It was the annoying little sister. I don't get it. It's wrong. He was the one driving. He was drunk. Rose and Lily should have taken their asses to the police department or shoved Connor off the side of the cliff. You chose Connor, a neighborhood kid, over your own sister, who's done nothing. Connor just slept with one of the other sisters. Oh, it was a series of just annoying events. So anyway, they pick her up and they're about to heave her over the side and her eyes open. She woke up. And they see her eyes open as they're throwing her over the side. Which, again, I made the joke about I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scary Movie, because that's what happens. The guy, so I Know What You Did Last Summer, they hit the person and then they dump him overboard and you find out later he actually drowned, something like that. So he wasn't actually dead. And then in Scary Movie, they hit the guy and he gets up in the middle of the street. He's like, I'm fine, I'm just gonna go home. And then they hit him with something that's funny. But it was not funny in this. It was horribly depressing. It was so depressing. And I sat there like, this is not fun to read. It's not fun to read. She was such a good character. She was so sweet. She was probably the only true good character in the book. And she was treated like garbage by every single person. And it was just like, oh, it was so sad. So at that point, you kind of like think back to all the moments she's been ignored, etc., realizing she's a ghost. And then the big twist happens and you find out that Nana obviously is not dead. That was very obvious from And Then There Were None. She's the first to die. And Then There Were None is not the first person to die. But as I say, if you haven't read And Then There Were None, you probably shouldn't listen to this either. But And Then There Were None, someone fakes their death and then they come back, kill the last person, so it seems like everybody died and the last person, it looks like suicide, but it's not. It's actually murder. Same thing kind of happens in this a little bit. It's not even that similar to them And Then There Were None, other than someone faked their death and was killing people. And at the very end, she kills herself so she can see Daisy one last time, because you find out that in the last seconds before they die, when you're in between death and the living, you can see Daisy. So the grandma kills herself to see her one last time and explain why she did what she did. And it turns out that Trixie, the daughter, who's like 13, also has a heart condition. Apparently it's hereditary. And she helped plan the whole thing. She's 13. And she was probably the sweetest character, but here comes my biggest issue with this book. The only good characters, the only people you really root for in this book are Daisy Darker, the grandma, and the daughter, Trixie. Sometimes Rose. Rose is in between until she throws her sister off the cliff. But those are the only three characters. And you're telling me that one of the characters is dead, another character is about to be dead and planned all of it, and the third character is a 13-year-old psychopath who helped plan all the murders. So, I mean, you basically turned everyone into a bad guy. Like, what? Like, what are you doing? So, I really didn't like that ending because I don't know if it's supposed to be like justice for Daisy, whatever. A 13-year-old who can help kill 5 people in pretty gruesome ways is a psychopath. Most kids who are abused still only kill their abusers when it's absolutely necessary, and most of the time they end up killed first. It is just not in a human nature, really, to seek out killing other people unless it is inside of you. And this girl, I would not be surprised if she grew up to be a serial killer. So you don't feel good about it, because Nana, who obviously feels guilty about it, but still killed her own son and daughter-in-law and two grandchildren and a boy she helped raise, she still killed all of them. Trixie killed her own mom and her aunt and and her grandparents. And I'm just like, I don't know. But Trixie will grow up to be a serial killer. And I think she talked about how she still only lived to 25. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe in her head, she's like, I want to do something good for my aunt who's been the only good person to me on this planet. Because really the only people who treated Trixie, the daughter, as someone good was Nana and Daisy Darker. Because after she had her surgery, she could see her. But I don't know what to say about it. Because I can't stand the idea that a 13-year-old helped kill all these people and was totally fine with it. Zero issue. Took the dog for a damn walk at the end of the book. Like, oh, let's just let Daisy kind of sink into all this. Let her think about it. I'm gonna take the dog for a walk while you think about it. And I'm like, you just killed your mom, your grandparents, and your aunts. Again, in pretty gruesome ways. Like, one was shot, one was literally like their neck snapped or choked. I don't know exactly what happened to Connor. But it was, I don't know. And then, and the Trixie was like, they faked her death. They had her hiding in a closet full of dead bodies, and she's like, so I just, yeah, no way. I hated that ending. Hated the twist that she was dead. Hated the twist that Trixie was involved because, oh gosh, I just can't. Nana at least felt bad and then killed herself at the end, which was really sad because I actually really like Nana. And I can see Nana's motivations because she saw how cruel everybody was to Daisy Darker. It's still extreme to kill 5 people you're very close with, like literally your whole family. But I can see it, kind of. Anyway, that's all I got, because it's really only the ending you have to talk about. The rest of the book is just lead up to the ending, so that's all I'm going to talk about, because that's what I hated about the book, and what turned it from it was kind of a 3, depending on the ending. If the ending was something, like, really cool, if she hadn't been dead, if she had been involved in the deaths, I would have enjoyed it. Probably would have been like a 3.5 to a 4. But the fact that she's dead and it was the only 2 likable characters in the book who did all the killings, didn't enjoy it. Didn't like the twist. So I know this is probably gonna be a hot take for a lot of people, but you know what? This is how I felt about it. I was so unhappy about this book. It was supposed to be a 5-star read for me. This was one of the books that I predicted would be 5 stars. One of my most anticipated reads of the year. And it was a 1. So anyway, that's my review for this book. Let me know what you guys thought about it, what you liked about it. If you liked this book, tell me why you liked it. And yes, go ahead and do spoilers, so people just need to be wary of the comments. But go ahead, tell me spoilers. If you didn't like this, why didn't you like it? Is a different reason from why I didn't like it. I'm curious about that. And anyway, like this video if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe to my channel for more book reviews and TBRs and things, etc. So I'll see you guys in the next video.